I don't think I'll be quite as entertaining as that. I'll try my best. He did introduce me as an engineer, so we'll try to keep it spicy, not as dry as an engineer might normally be. So who am I? I'm Eric Ziegler, Senior Technical Architect at ArcXP. ArcXP is a company of the Washington Post. And today I want to talk to you guys about, AI pilots and how you can actually scale these things as something useful. Oh, I didn't get my clicker. One sec. All right, we're on. Okay, so, 8 out of 10 companies are already using AI. And among them, like in 2025, we were already seeing like a 42% abandonment rate for any given tool that an organization is using. That's almost double year over year. And organizations are running into problems with lack of ROI, expertise. This is what a hype cycle looks like. It goes through these cycles, and where we're reaching right now is this trial of disillusionment. The teams that are going to break through are the ones that can effectively scale these things, that can actually build an architecture, a reasonable approach to this. So narrowing in on the media in particular, 77% of organizations, and this is from Reuters, say that they're using AI somewhere, a little nebulous. But when you break these down even further, it gets a little bleak. Only 13% describe what's happening in their organization as transformational. And the rest, the vast majority, is just kind of, yeah, we've had a little bit of success. Some stuff is promising, some stuff is limiting. And there's an even smaller percentage where it's like, this actually made things worse. So, why is this happening? Well, there's several reasons why this could happen. Actually, could I get my speaker notes on the conference? So there's several reasons why this can happen. But one of the major blockers that folks are running into is lack of expertise, right? Who are we building this for? So we at ArcXP, we identified 4 key blockers. It basically starts with your data. You have your data in all sorts of different locations, different tools managing them. And you have your text, your video, your audio, podcasts in a whole different system. And these are all trapped in disparate places. And in order to get access to anything, you have to build new integrations yourself. Sorry, my screen, it totally dropped my notes. I'm sorry. Sorry, folks. The next thing that it gets into is you run into tool sprawl, right? Your integration complexity starts to grow because now you're basically targeting, I need feature XYZ, so I bring on tool XYZ. And we're getting more and more tools added on. Our surface is getting brittle. And now we're dealing with licensing and vendor sprawl. And what's funny is this is also a problem in cybersecurity. If you talk to any cybersecurity engineer, they're going to scream at you about these things like, please, less tools. But it's becoming a problem for us too on AI. And the next one, this is where it gets worse. And if you take nothing else from this talk, trust and governance, this is the key component of success. This is the part that most of these pilots will skip. And, if we're being honest, I bring up trust and governance, but a lot of times just the lack of it. So you run into, when you have so many tools, you run into an inconsistent application, if any. You need your guardrails, but they're being applied inconsistently across different tools. You have a hard time controlling errors and ensuring safety. And, AI agents, AI models, they will always have some level of sort of indirection or indeterminism, they can get really far. But say you still have a 1% error rate, you still want to control that. You still need a way to minimize, control, and eliminate those errors. And that's where this governance layer comes in. And of course, the final blocker is probably the most human one, which is just, what's the direction? Why are we doing this? Are we building AI for AI's sake? Are we actually solving a real problem, or are we doing this for vanity? And, if we roll out these tools for our producers and our editors, but they aren't really seeing any benefit from them, then adoption is going to stall. It will completely stall. So we don't see this as, well, how do you do it, right? Like, can we just add another tool, right? Like, how do we break down these different walls? Well, the problem is we've been adding too many tools. Adding more and more tools is exactly how we got here. We got to our vendor sprawl. We got to our just ridiculous situation we're in. So the way we get past this, and I apologize, I'm an engineer. This is how I think about these things. But the way we get past this is by having an architected platform. Something that is built from the ground up to actually solve our purpose. So what we need is a smarter platform. And, at ArcXP, that is what we've been building. And I want to, before we kind of go into the whys and hows of this, I want to talk about one of the largest whys of how we've done all this stuff. Last year, actually on this stage, my bosses, Joe Croney and Joey Marburger, they said, and this has rung in my head ever since, they said, if your content can be replaced by AI, it probably wasn't very valuable content to begin with. And data here is a little stark. When readers interact with content that they perceive, news content that they perceive to be AI generated, trust drops precipitously, brand damage. Data in 2025 is actually showing that it can cause a decline in ad performance. And this one I really want to pause on from Pointer. Readers don't feel, a mild discomfort. Viewers don't feel just like, oh, that was an AI news video. That's okay. No, they're feeling very, very strongly about this. The word disgusted is what came up. This is a powerful, powerful word. This is hostility, right? And that's not at all what we want for our brands. So we don't think the way forward is AI journalism, right? AI generated journalism. We think the way forward is tooling that accelerates what our journalists already do. Producing excellent content, trustworthy content. What I've heard is, we're in a sea of AI generated content. Be that island of authenticity that the shipwrecked audiences can sail to. So everything you're going to see here, every single part of our architecture, this has been like a core tenet of how we've built. So 4 blockers, 4 pillars, 4 opportunities. We're going to go through it, but the 4 pieces you need, and whether you want to use ArcXP or not, you want to go and build your own thing. These are the 4 you want to remember. You want to unify your data. You need to have an intelligence layer sitting on top of that. You need governance and controls. And this last bit here, I put this as no-code agents, but the idea here is you want your AI-powered tools, your AI assistants to be able to operate autonomously enough that your people aren't babysitting them, right? The last thing you want is to give them another job to do, right? These tools should help them make their jobs quicker and easier. So starting with data, and I apologize, this is going to be the most technical slide. If your eyes are glazing over, don't worry, it gets more exciting after this. But what you need to build at this layer is, and you need to take your different types of content that you are trying to basically build an AI understanding for. You need to boil these down to what we call it in the machine learning realm as a vector or an embedding. Very confusing word, especially if you're dealing with, embedding videos on the web. You're like, what are we doing? But you don't need to worry about that term. The idea is basically we are taking all these different modalities, different types of content, and we are boiling them down into a language that our AI systems can actually understand. And you get a lot of power from this. Not only do you get AI understanding, but you get semantic connections between these things. So you can actually get to a point where your video that's about the Strait of Hormuz, your AI system intrinsically knows that, oh, this is related to, this creator's podcast that was talking about this yesterday. It can make those links for you. That's why this is critically important. And I show in this chart here a few of the tools that you can use with AWS to get to here, S3 for your raw storage. Amazon just recently launched their vector store. Highly recommend you look into it if you are a builder. And of course, they have their Bedrock system. They have Amazon Transcribe, recognition, all sorts of great tools. But I'm not here to tell you all about those tools, just to give you an example of like what we're working with. So the next part is our intelligence layer. Now, this is a snapshot of what we built. And what I want to emphasize here is you don't want to think about this as just a collection of disparate tools, right? You want to think of this as your capabilities that you're building into your platform, right? Like if you're a mechanic working on a car, someone hands you a framer's hammer, that's not going to be terribly helpful for you. You want your things to be very purpose built for what you're doing. In our case, the media. That's why we focused on these particular items that we have. We have our AI editor giving quicker, spell checking, translation, that sort of things right there in our editing. Our copy editor agent, which we have just recently launched. This is a real-time collaborator. So as your writer or even your editors are working through a particular story, they can get that real-time feedback as they're going. So it's more like a collaborative partnership as opposed to, oh, this is a tool I need to run, go through a pass, do some edits, click run, go through a pass, do some edits. That's something you really want to strive for with this kind of agentic workflow. Another product we're very happy about. This is based on Washington Post's Ask the Post, calling it Ask the News. This gives us a way to sort of lean into this new way that we're seeing some of the younger audiences really engage with content, where they are going to ChatGPT, they're going to Claude, and they're asking questions there. And this is basically giving you a way to provide this sort of semantic search, like a conversational interface to your content. And this provides text, video, audio, anything in your book. And of course, there's also the more table stakes stuff, which is really boring, auto tagging, classification, your taxonomy stuff. Very boring stuff to work on, but it's pretty important. It is really important, especially for your systems to understand. And of course, translation and localization, reaching new audiences. This is somewhere where we are finding these AI agents actually really excel. And this can save quite a bit of time for your people. Now, this is what we did. This is how we built it. If you build it yourself, you definitely want to build this on top of what we showed last time, right? You want this layer of governance. You need your vector store. We use Amazon Bedrock because it provides like this really nice kind of Swiss Army knife of tooling for us. Okay. We're on governance again. And I apologize. I'm going to talk about governance a lot in this talk. So, this is where most pilots fail. This is the most important piece. Something that works at 5 users is going to fall to pieces at 50 if you don't build it with governance. You need a way to control the tone, control how prompts are working. This is basically your risk control for this entire system. What we've built, I would consider these probably like a nice 4 pillars. You need a way to register your prompts, like your system prompts, the part that actually guides how your agents think. Model selection. And this isn't just, do I want to use Claude versus ChatGPT kind of thing? This is more on like, what is my specific task? Which model at any given time can handle this in a cost-effective manner? And of course, output guardrails. This is like your last line of defense to make sure that the big errors don't make it out. the last thing you want is an agent posting something embarrassing on behalf of your organization. Horrible. That's why output guardrails are so important. And of course, the final piece is actual audit and observability. This is something a lot of folks skip. I don't really know why. Maybe it's because it's hard and they think, oh, we'll just tack it on later. Without this, it's really hard to reason about what your system is actually doing at any given time. So you need this observability layer where you can actually have a paper trail of, we have 50 agents working, doing such and such and such, but can we actually say what they're really doing at any given time? Without this layer, you really can't. So again, I apologize. You're going to hear governance probably 3 more times in this talk. It's super important. Now, the final pillar, I think this kind of deserved its own section. This is on the actual tooling, the agents part. We like to think of these agents as like a partnership with your editors. What we have gotten to from the first 3 pillars is now we have an architecture to build on top of, to actually accelerate and allow our agents to be useful. Whether it's our UI, the actual framework where everything runs, everything's very intentional. My tips here, with your UI, you need to make sure that these agents are interwoven into whatever interface your producers, editors are already working in. It is incredibly frustrating to have to shunt them into a new tool and then go back to their old tools just to get something done. You don't want that at all. So it's important to make sure these things are interwoven at that layer. Underneath that, you'll have your framework, your collection of tools that are all powering everything that your users are seeing. And this one here, this is a little bonus for you guys. You'll see retrieval here, RAG, retrieval augmented generation. This is a kind of a secret weapon piece that makes a lot of these things work. If you're talking with any vendor, talking with any engineer, and they aren't talking about retrieval augmented generation, you need to question them. And again, governance. Like I said, this is coming up a lot. So governance needs to be at every single layer, everywhere. Again, if you take nothing else from this talk, governance is key. So with agents in particular, you guys have probably heard the word agentic and agents like 1 billion times this year, not just at NAB. The advice I can give here with agents is you really want to make sure these are task focused. Models and agents, they tend to fall apart as their responsibilities grow. So it's important to really narrow in on particular tasks that you want to accomplish, because that keeps their quote unquote context window narrower. It's basically, as you expand their world, there's more things they have to think about. And that's when errors start to accelerate. So again, you want task-specific agents very focused on what they're supposed to do and nothing else. You can think of it like we have an agent that's job is to dig into a video and find the important parts, where it is. What can we clip this to TikTok? Would this perform better on YouTube? You don't want that agent to also know how to differentiate between Castilian Spanish and, Latin American Spanish for copy editing. It doesn't need that data. So don't give it that data. It'll just make things hairier for it. A particular agent that we've been working on recently is our copy editor agent. And I just want to kind of this is just to get a little concrete on what an agent can actually look like and how you build one, right? You want to have, of course, your UI layer, but it's really important, especially for us, because we're a multi-tenant organization. It's critically important for us that it's we don't want all of our customers having the same agent, because then they just have the same voice. And that's the opposite. No one wants that, right? No one wants their organization to sound like every other organization. So we have built with this Bedrock knowledge base piece. And this basically allows for every organization on our platform to have their own agent that is grounded in their style. And on top of that, we use our per element calls. So this actually accelerates how things move. So instead of waiting and waiting and waiting for results, it's literally per element on your page, per element on whatever video you're working with, you get results back in real time. And yeah, there's lots of neat little things it does, but we can save that for another time, I think. So we have agents in the creation cycle. We have agents in the editorial life cycle. But where we see this going is agents across the entire life cycle. Like you think of an agent that can gather primary sources for you or find a beat for you on the research end, or agents on the distribution end, which can actually identify these poignant parts of your content and get them to the correct platforms. Like I mentioned earlier, is this going to perform well on TikTok versus, YouTube Reels? Is this going to do really well in this part of the world? That's where we want to see these agents go. You think of an example of this. Say you have an agent working in the background, and you have a video uploader, or maybe it's a newscast, like you just had an hour-long newscast sent in, and you would have an editor spend, I don't know, maybe like an hour kind of going through things like, oh, we can probably send this one over to Facebook. It'd do well there. But what if you just had an agent that could go through, find these little segments, clip them out on its own, maybe pitch them to your team for the human in the loop, accept, deny, and go from there. So, okay, I've been very engineer heavy. I apologize. But what does this mean, like in practice, right? What are you getting from all this? It's pretty simple. You're getting time back for your editors, right? You want to eliminate the tedium. You're getting consistency. That's what the governance layer. This is where the governance is super important. This is how you ensure your consistency and your brand voice while still using agents. And what else is extremely important about, especially from a platform approach, is that as you grow into new content modalities, or, maybe even change your direction, in the past, you'd have to bring on a new tool, right? So you're doing text today, but you want to do video tomorrow. Got to bring a new tool for that. But if you approach it from a platform perspective, the platform is just there and it's ready to grow with you. And, at ArcXP, the way we built this, it's a cloud native media architecture. Like we are, we're a part of the Washington Post. So it's media in our blood, right? We are, media first. Everything we think about is media. And yeah, we're built from the ground up for it on AWS. AWS gives us this really strong, stable, and resilient foundation that we build on top of. Their AI services gives us this really easy way to operationalize AI at scale. And on top of that, we build our intelligence layer where, our magic comes in. And of course, our editorial tools, the AI agents, everything that built on top of that. So I want to highlight a customer of ours that I think has been just a real star in this space. And, I can't just say the Washington Post, that's not fair. Can't just talk about us all the time, but we have a customer named Le Parisien. This is one of the biggest newspapers in France. And these guys went in a matter of months from 0 users using AI in a transformative way to over 350 in their newsroom daily using AI workflows. This led to much higher, much more accurate content discoverability across their catalog. And this organization was wonderful to work with on this, because we don't want to just assume what our customers need, right? We want to partner with them. We want to build with them. And we built this with Le Parisien. They wanted transparency into the architecture, how it works. They wanted to make sure that they weren't getting locked into a particular model at any given time. What if Anthropic goes down? Can we use GPT, we're a French company. Can we switch to Mistral? We need to leave those options open for them. And that was something we took that feedback and built it into the platform. So definitely the lesson here, don't assume anything, build it with people. So going back to the beginning, 13% of organizations were saying that they found the AI to be transformational in their workflows. Doing a little math in my head here, that's 87% that are not seeing a benefit or perhaps the full benefit of AI tooling right now. We don't really see that as a failure. We see that as 87% of news organizations have a really, really big opportunity ahead of them. And yeah, that's what we're building here at ArcXP. And We would love to talk with you about it. We have our QR code here if you would like to learn more, or just find me right after this talk. So the teams that are going to break through here, they're the ones that are going to scale with consistency and build with purpose. I'd like to thank you guys. My name is Eric Ziegler, again, Senior Technical Architect at ArcXP, and I think we have just enough time for questions.
What for us?
We don't have a booth, but there's a lot of us here, and we're very friendly.
Absolutely. But first, let's give it up for Eric. I thought that was great. So if it's governance, basically, it works. And if it's not, it's user error. But anybody have a question for Eric? I mean, he's really a nice guy. I'm not kidding you. I'm not kidding.
I do apologize. We do actually have a hospitality suite over here.
And they have a hospitality suite.
We have a home base.
Thanks for the plug. But anybody have any questions, any statements, any comments about his jacket? I mean, anything. I mean, just I loved it. Here, wait, hold on. Let me walk in front of this. And here.
Thanks, Eric. Towards the end of your presentation, you had a kind of almost like a workflow slide in which you were talking about the future of agents. And on the left was research, and then there was story production. So going back into the workflow of sort of news gathering and original, sort of reporting.
Yeah.
Does ArcXP have agents and modules and components of the platform that are that backward integrated into news gathering workflows? Because I always thought of the platform more as a CMS and not necessarily, that sort of source detection, stuff that happens at the beginning.
Well, that's why I'm here. We do have a perception of being, just a CMS, but we have been building some pretty fantastic things on top of it. And yeah, that is where we're headed now with doing the actual news gathering, the beat discovery, as you will. Where we're at now with our agents, we are fully in that creation part. We're fully in that curation editing part, and we are getting ready to roll out some new exciting stuff. Again, really happy to talk to you if you'd like to.